Hello everyone, it's time to do another deck profile, this time on my updated Encounter Shadow Paladin deck, or the Phantom Blaster deck, or in this case now it might be called the Phantom Blaster Overlord deck. I haven't done a deck profile in this for a while because each set barely gave too many cards, but when they reintroduced Phantom Blaster Overlord for Encounter, I decided to wait on it until that comes out because that's when the big change really will happen, because usually when there's an evolution of a card, big changes. So I decided to wait out on it. I was originally going to do this as set 4, but seeing that set 5 was giving us Phantom Blaster Overlord, like I said, I wait out on it because that's when the really big change happened. So anyway, Phantom Blaster Dragon has been one of my favorite units ever since it was introduced. Yes, it's kind of nostalgia bait, and I kind of have a mixed feeling about putting Encounter or Nostalgia cards in the OverDress series because that should really be for V. But either way, this is currently my only Cater Sanctuary deck right now, and I am still hoping for a different Cater Sanctuary deck for like one in the current era, and I might have found one through overDress. That'll be a new mechanic, but maybe. It just depends on how that works out. But anyway, that's besides the point. So Phantom Blaster Dragon Overlord, I just love the design. It just looks awesome, hence why I like to play it. And it's a night themed dragon too, obviously, with that as well. But anyway, how this deck runs. So first off, I had a few things to think about when I was building this deck. First off, it's the ride deck. When it came to the ride deck, I was debating whether to run regular Phantom Blaster Dragon in the ride deck. And why is that? It's because Phantom Blaster Overlord is an evolution of Phantom Blaster Dragon, and it does want it in soul for it to be at full power. So if you put in your ride deck, it is guaranteed to be on your Vanguard, and then you can ride next turn. The only problem is that you do lose the Persona ride next turn. But luckily, there's another card that can turbo the Phantom Blaster Dragon out in soul without riding it. So there is that, but you do have some reliance on other pieces to do so, but it has been reliable enough through my playtesting that you don't really need to ride the Phantom Blaster Dragon. And there's another advantage of riding Phantom Blaster Dragon first with the ride deck, but I'll explain that later. But as is for now, I am playing this as a Phantom Blaster Overlord Turbo deck because 4 attacks on your first ride is actually very powerful, and it's actually a lot better than expected. That one extra crit, especially on your very first grade 3 ride, can actually be very nasty, and getting that is actually not too hard as I thought it would be. But other than that, let's start off with the deck with, of course, the ride deck. So first off, my starter will obviously be Full Bow, because Shadow Paladin theme, which will go to the grade 1 of the ride chain, or in this case ride line, Blaster Javelin, where when you ride Blaster Dark on top of it, you can call the top card of your deck as Res. This will also combo with Blaster Dark, of course, but it has a second skill if your Vanguard is Blaster during turn, plus 2k, but that's not going to matter. Unless if you're riding Phantom Blaster Dragon, but you are not riding Phantom Blaster Dragon in this deck. Which now we go to the grade 2, where we ride Blaster Dark, so Blaster Javelin will trigger to call the top card. This is to combo with Blaster Dark's first skill, where when on place on Vanguard or Rearguard, you can counterblast 1, retire one of your other rearguards, hence the Blaster Javelin call, and then choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it. And then it gets drive plus 1 to the end turn. Keep in mind, you do not get the drive check on the rearguard. That's only if you give the ability of drive checking. That's when you actually can drive check. But anyway, it just combos with the Blaster Javelin and just gives a twin drive. Most of the time you will only just get the twin drive, especially if you go first. Now the second skill will be actually pretty relevant, because Blaster Dark is a must play with the Phantom Blaster Overlord. Because the skill is, during your turn, if your rearguard was retired this turn, plus 5k. This will matter because Phantom Blaster Overlord is going to retire and it's going to revolve around Blaster Dark. In which we go to the grade 3, we just straight up evolve to Phantom Blaster Overlord right away, because why not? Phantom Blaster Overlord, where on continuous Vanguard, if your Phantom Blaster Dragon is in soul, it gets crit plus 1. So crit of 2, and there's no both players being grade 3 restriction right there too. So on your very first grade 3 ride, this can be very nasty, especially if you can turbo that Phantom Blaster Dragon soul, which few cases I nearly got stuck, but most of the time it's not even hard to get it in soul right off the bat. But the second skill is where it really matters the most, because when it attacks, you can retire 2 rearguards, call Blaster Dark from your soul or drop zone, and then if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this card and the Blaster Dark gets plus 10k. Yeah, so basically 4 attacks on your first grade 3 ride. That's actually very powerful, and being able to do this every single turn without a counterblast is also very nice. And yes, you may think it's a trade 2 for 1, which it is kind of, but do remember, you can retire the Blaster Dark. So technically, you're basically trading 1. So in technicality terms, you're really just sacrificing 1 in many cases to get a 4th attack, which is not bad, and the Blaster Dark is just going to become more powerful with the extra 5k. And plus another 10k from Phantom Blaster Overlord if both players are at grade 3. So very nice, 4 attacks every single turn, no counter blasts, which is also very good. And the crit of 2 every single turn is also very nice, and it's actually been a lot better than I thought it would be. That extra 10k buff is also very nice, especially because that crit of 2 isn't really much pressuring without extra power. So that is cool as well. And we do still have access to a card that can count as 2 retires, which is also very nice. But anyway, that is just the ride deck. To the main deck itself, first off, just go to the base form first, the regular Phantom Blaster Dragon. You're not gonna ride this. I'm gonna be realistic because like I said before, you're gonna put this to soul just turbo the Phantom Blaster Overlord's full power right off the bat in your first grade 3. At least as soon as you can. But just in case, if you do put it in your ride deck for some reason or you decide to ride it, when placed on Vanguard, you can choose a blaster card in soul and call it to rearguard. It can be relevant sometimes. And in the second skill where act, once per turn, you can counterblast 1, retire 3 of your rearguards plus 10k 1 crit, and then choose 2 of your opponent's rearguards and retire them. That is one advantage about using Phantom Blaster Dragon first, because you do have field control over this, but so does Blaster Dark. So in many ways, just having Phantom Blaster Overlord and then just using it to call Blaster Dark doesn't really change too much. So it's not very necessary to ride this, especially when you can just turbo Phantom Blaster Overlord out, especially with the Blaster Dark combo. And that also gives you 4 attacks, so no real reason to really ride this other than for the turbo. And then, because of course, for Persona ride reasons, you obviously have to run the other 3 Phantom Blaster Overlords. Another reason why you want to play Turbo Phantom Blaster Overlord, because you don't want to lose your Persona ride for 1 turn. Next, I play Escarod Angel. So Escarod Angel, it's not super necessary, but it is pretty decent because on place, on rearguard, you can soul blast 1, look at top card of deck, and call that card to rearguard in the same column as this unit. If it's order card, you lose it of course, but it is a +1, and I do prefer running this over Maka. Maka does give you a choice call, but you have to retire one of your rearguards, which is one thing I really do not like Maka for, is because you have to trade one for another and you still have to soul blast. This one just gives you out a unit without a retire, and sometimes you do need that extra rearguard. And then, because Blaster Dark is so important in this deck, I run the other 3 Blaster Darks. You could cut it down to 2, but sometimes you won't be able to get the Blaster Dark out of soul. And yeah, sometimes you do have to draw into it. And I have faced that situation few times, so just being able to have it in hand ready is also very nice, especially if you can't soul blast it, which is another reason why you could run Phantom Blaster Dragon in your ride deck, so you could just ride it and then pull the Blaster Dark out of soul. But it is up to personal preferences. Personally, having the 3 extra Blaster Dark just really helps out, especially if you're in a situation where you just cannot pull the Blaster Dark out of soul. Good number of times you should be able to, but sometimes you just won't be able to because bad luck draw. Next, for the new card to turbo it out, and kind of meant to, Skull Witch and Aemon. So first off, if your Vanguard is Blaster, plus 5k. So it's going to be 10k base. But the second skill is where it matters. Because on placed on rearguard, if your Vanguard is a Shadow Paladin, keep that in mind, it has to be a Shadow Paladin Vanguard. Hence, it's basically the blaster lineup that is Shadow Paladin, not Majesty Lord. You can counterblast 1, put a card from your hand to soul, and draw 2 cards. Yeah, any card in hand to soul to draw 2 cards. That's a +1 right there. And there's also a plus in soul, which is also very nice. But what's important is that you actually put the Phantom Blaster Dragon Soul to put your Phantom Blaster Overlord on full power right off the bat. And yes, I have been drawing these quite consistently too with the Phantom Blaster Dragon. And it's also your main draw power. But if that doesn't work out, this is your backup, Drilling Angel, where on place, on rearguard, you can put 1 card from your drop zone into your soul. And then you look at top 3 cards of your deck for a same card name as that card and call it to rearguard. What really matters is that you put the drop zone card into your soul. Because one thing you can do is discard Phantom Blaster Dragon for your ride deck purposes or something, or just retire the Blaster Dark if you have to, and then just put that card to soul. there you go. You got a backup turbo plan. And it's been working out really well. You don't use this too often compared to Nemin, so I just run 2, but this is backup, so extra 2 is fine. That's it for the grade 2 lineup. For the grade 1 lineup, I play the Armor Person Knight Mergen. So the skill is, when placed on rearguard from hand, if your Vanguard is Blaster, you can discard a card and look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and then call up to 2 cards from among them as rest. So, and then discard the rest because order cards exist. So basically, discard 1 for 2. It's just really here just to get you some extra pluses if you need it. And it's also the same reason why I run 2 Karens. The Karen is, when placed on rearguard, you can rest it, and then if your Vanguard is Blaster, you can call the top card of your deck. If not, you just put that on top, but at the end of the turn, retire that called unit. Now, why I decided to play 2 and 2. First off, Karen doesn't need an extra card in hand. That's important because sometimes you do need that extra rearguard without needing another card in hand to let you do stuff. The Magain needs an extra card in hand for the 2 units. So in many ways, it's really just a +1 either way for both cards. It's just Magain still stays at stand and can still boost us 8k compared to the Karen, where it has to rest itself for the random card. So there is ups and downs in between both of them, but just in case, in many ways, Magain is better for the 8k, for the guaranteed 8k boost, and the 2 random calls could be anything. But the Karen, you may lose itself as booster, but the random call can be very helpful sometimes, especially when you need the rear guards. So I'm deciding to do a 2 and 2 split. And then I run the 4 Brunners. Brunners just count as 2 retires for a Blaster unit. Phantom Blaster Overlord needs 2 retires. There's also Phantom Blaster Dragon, if you decide to use that, needs 3 retires. So just minusing the retire count just really helps. Especially sometimes you could just draw into this while you have like some sort of empty field and then just call it, retire this as 2 rear guards and then just call back the Blaster Dark if needed. Sometimes that just happens. But through my playtesting, you don't really need to run 4 of these, but it's there just in case. You could technically run like 2 of these instead, because based on my experience of playing, I want to clear out my front row rear guard, and this is very likely not going to be in the front row, unless if you Persona Ride during the turn. But it is there as 2 retires, just in case you need it. And then finally, no questions asked for PGs. And then trigger lineup, simple, it's the over trigger, 8 crits, the 3 draws, and the 4 heals. You could run the new heal triggers with abilities if you want, but so far the meta doesn't really have any restanding rear guards, or not too many, so it can really hurt if you actually run those, because you do lose the extra 5k shield, but it is personal preference. So that's it for this deck profile of my Phantom Blaster Encounter deck. What do you guys think of it? What other changes would you make? And what other cards would you recommend? I just gave you my list, and so far I've been liking it. It's pretty fun, very basic too. It's not like overpowered or anything, but Phantom Blaster Overlord has always been one of my favorite units, especially one of my favorite designs, especially Shadow Paladin as a whole. Like, I just love the aesthetic compared to Royal Paladin. So I had to build it, and especially this is my only Cater Sanctuary deck, and it is my first Cater Sanctuary deck. And I kind of got the nostalgia bait, even though I was a little mixed about it. But right now, I don't mind it too much since they're not overdoing it compared to what they did in V. But overall, I am just glad to see the evolution back. It didn't really take me by surprise because I knew it was eventually going to happen. The only thing that took me a little bit about a surprise is that it's not a grade 4. Because I think grade 4s are more appropriate as a evolution type card than putting them as grade 3. But if you want to put it as grade 3, I guess I could get it 1 turn faster. Especially Nemin Turbo, because why not? But in that's it for this, and see you all next time.